Yo, Pokey26 here, and today I just wanted to show off the Gas Arrow Deadeye build and why it is such a potent, fast, high damage build. So this is a low level zone, not like the best showcase, but as you can see, it clears pretty good. This is the same clear as I was getting when I was here originally, because I pretty much had the same damage nodes as now overall, and I had, well, literally the same bow. It's an item level 55 bow. Yeah, you just drop some gas, you drop some flame wall, and everything explodes. It's pretty good. And as you can see, compared to a lot of the builds, it's pretty mobile as well, which I think is one of the best benefits of this build. You will breeze through the campaign, and once you switch to the Evasion plus Energy Shield variant instead of the pure Evasion variant, you even get a ton of ES, as you can see at the bottom left. Yeah, it's super quick. So one thing I do want to show is the gas does not actually explode from the flame wall. Gas explodes from igniting enemies. So like, see how they're ignited, and then you drop the gas and it explodes instantly. But yeah, generally you just try to get them on top of each other and it'll just go off. So that's just a little bit of demonstration of the sort of gameplay you can expect. And I would say it was largely the same in maps. I did make it up to tier 14s in hardcore solo self-found before I did actually die. But that was because I went a little bit too deep with the delirium and had like a level 5+ delirium going, and I didn't manually stop it, and it was just a little dangerous, and I eventually died. The first, show off a few pieces of the gear that are crucial. One is a good bow. I didn't actually have a good bow, I would say. It was kind of just average. You know, it's okay. It'll get you what you need. Obviously, this worked even in tier 14s, and it's nowhere near good, right? Like, I don't even have fizz and percent fizz together. I have flat fizz and then some lightning. But I do have attack speed as well, which is pretty good. One thing to note that I want to make very known is, I think plus level to projectile skills is kind of a bait on this build. Unless you somehow are able to manage the mana for it, which generally is going to be by cutting a damage gem and putting in inspiration gem instead, it's just not worth. It's much better to get fizz damage, more fizz damage, attack speed, and then if you have to get something else, lightning damage probably preferable, just to help with applying shock, because shock will increase your damage a lot as well. Yeah, that's the crucial things: attack speed, fizz damage, maybe some lightning damage. Obviously my armor wasn't super amazing. You'd like to have even more evasion ES on this. And one thing to note when you are switching to the Evasion Energy Shield version, Series Disdain is one of the better ways to do it currently, as it gives you a lot of flat energy shield. You can also just get a helmet that has a lot of base energy shield on it to begin with, and that'll work okay as well, because there's that one node on the tree that kind of like the Path of Exile 1 Shadow, why can't I remember the ascendancy? Trickster, that gives evasion based on the energy shield on your helmet. You know, that works okay too. But Aziri's Disdain is pretty insane, I would say, because the amount of flat energy shield you get from this is a lot, and that energy shield just scales really well with any of the percent energy shields you get later. Okay, so the tree, this is about what I ended up with, but we'll go over this more in detail in just a second. But yeah, if you did wanted to see what I actually had at the moment where I died, this is it. If anything, I would have preferably not had mana problems and switched this to attack speed. And then maybe these 4 points I should have had into these Evasion ES nodes instead, like these 3. But otherwise, I like the tree as is. Is good. Okay, so now the important part, which is how you will progress with this build, what the trees will look like, and so on. So this is the tree you will initially progress with. This is the Evasion tree that will cover campaign. So by the end of campaign, you will basically have this. Your first 2 points will definitely go to Gathering Winds. Your next 2 Ascendancy points are dependent on what league you're in. If you're in Hardcore, then you go Windward, like I did. If you're in Softcore, then you can go here to like Point Blank. If you prefer, you can try Far Shot, but I think Point Blank in general is much better and easier to pull off. Because anything that's actually scary to you is probably going to get into your face, or if not, it's like a boss and you're going to get up into their face anyways or something, because it's sometimes easier to dodge when you're on them. I think Point Blank is just generally better. But yeah, that would be your second point, either Point Blank if you're on Softcore, or Windward if you're on Hardcore. And then, if you're on Hardcore, it'd be Point Blank third, and Endless Munitions third for Softcore, which is an extra projectile. Extra projectile is huge because the gas currently essentially shotguns, you know, like when you add extra projectiles through Scattershot on the gas, you're getting a bunch of different gas instances that each explode, and that's how you get so much damage out of this build. So an extra projectile is a lot more damage here too. Otherwise, like I said, yeah, just choose what you want based on what league you're in or what you feel comfortable with running. If you just want damage, you don't actually care for Windward, you could go with this on Hardcore as well. Just get the extra damage. Yeah, this is basically the final campaign tree, something like this. And generally, for the skill points that you allocate, you're going to go right down the line. So you're going to grab like everything at the start first. Maybe not the evasion ones here, like these 2. You could skip the move speed as well. Make sure to grab an extra couple attributes, whether it be strength or int or something, if you need that early on. But ideally you have enough dex from this 10 dex and this 10 dex that you're able to at least equip the important stuff like your bows. But yeah, go for these nodes at the start early. I guess I can zoom in on them. But you will be eventually respeccing these 3 nodes in the middle here later. And like I said, you can hold off on some of these side ones if you want. If you, like I said, need attribute requirements. But this is how I would progress. And then you come down the middle and you basically just grab stuff along the middle, except I would skip the quiver one unless you're actually like in a trade league and you're getting good quivers all the time. If you actually have good quivers all the time, this is pretty worth, because it's like 80% bonuses from quiver, which, you know, for 5 points, you're almost getting an extra quiver worth of stats on your build, which is insane, right? So you do eventually want this, but until you get a good quiver, you can hold off on it. So I think I might have grabbed it early on, but generally I think it's better to wait. Yeah, you go here, you grab the 3% move speed, you grab Catalysis for some damage, is taken as Ellie, which is fine because you don't have armor anyways. And then Maiming Strike, go over here for some skill, speed, acceleration, and then, wait, this is a little off. This is supposed to be like this. I don't know how that got switched around. But yeah. Then you grab some Feathered Fletching. You can technically hold off on this until you grab maybe Catapult, because that's when this gets a lot better. Because Catapult has the extra 15 proj speed, which then gets converted to damage from Fletching. Otherwise, you really only have this node right at the start for like 8%. But Feathered Fletching, definitely you can hold off on for a little, unless you have proj speed River or something, if it gets that. I don't even know. But yeah, basically, like I said, along the middle, maybe skip fletching or master fletching until later, maybe skip feathered fletching until later. But along the middle is pretty good. And then you branch off. If you want to not worry about stat requirements, I would go to this top side right away, because you can get this evasion node with increased dex and then grab the big 25 dex, the 8 dex. You can even path through all the way to this if you want, because each of these is another 5 dex and some attack speed. But ideally this is enough. Ideally this satisfies the stat requirements you need. But if you're not that worried about stat requirements, maybe you have items that are helping it and so on, then I would recommend getting the damage first. You can grab exploit along the way, and then getting over to catapult is pretty huge, because like I think you should grab the catapult before this section here with fletching, because the increased AoE is going to help a lot. And then once you have this prod speed, that's when fletching over here, feather fletching actually matters. So yeah, go there. So, you know, grab the start, come along the middle, grab these, come along the left, grab catapult. You know, there's some bunch of stat nodes along the way with the travel nodes, so it's fine. And then you can decide if you want to go to feathered fletching or if you want to come over here to like proficiency and enhanced reflexes, depending on what stat requirement problems you may have. And then near the end, you just grab some extra damage over here. This will definitely just help along the way. Later you won't have these nodes, but early on they're pretty good. And you know, grab the quiver nodes when you think you have a good quiver. And that's about it. I could say this as well. If you do actually have a pretty good fizz damage bow, you can go for this and add Herald of Ash, assuming you have enough strength for Herald of Ash. And this will get you an extra 50% increased fire damage, which gas explosion takes the fizz, converts it to fire. This is 50% fire damage for your explosion. It's pretty good damage increase, but does require you to have enough spirit for Herald of Ash after you already probably are equipping Wind Dancer and maybe attaching it with even Clarity and stuff like that. But if you like it, or if you want to just run a bunch of Heralds, you could go over here early. But yeah, it's an option. Otherwise, yeah, this is the campaign tree that I would go with for Evasion. And then if you're continuing to progress with Evasion, instead of switching to Evasion AES early, this is what I would finalize it with. You just essentially grab a lot of Evasion nodes as you're going into maps. You grab these Evasion nodes. I grabbed both sides because it essentially ends up a 70% increase when you have been hit and when you haven't been hit if you grab both. You get an extra Evasion node here. You respec this middle section at the start to these two. You switch to attack speed instead of proj damage. Maybe stick on proj damage if you're having mana trouble, because extra attack speed just kind of blows through mana quicker. Yeah, otherwise this tree, you know, like I said, Coming Calamity, grab these attack speed nodes as well for extra dex too and attack speed. And this is what you'd end up with the Evasion tree. And then there's not much else you can do here from Evasion, and that's why the Evasion Energy Shield tree has a lot of merit. And not to mention, Energy Shield is just one of the strongest mechanics in the game currently. Maybe it'll be changed in the future, but for now, that's what we're working with. It's strong. Just try it out. And yeah, so after you get done here with the Evasion tree, maybe you even convert to Evasion Energy Shield earlier. But this is what I would convert to when I switch. So you want to kind of cut this whole bottom section, and you want to cut this whole dexterity section, because you're going to get a lot of travel nodes here, and some of these nodes have dex and int, which you need both of so that you can run things like Solar Orb with Fire Exposure Strip Away and Flammability for your curse. They both have int requirements. Obviously, the Flame Wall can stay low level. You really only need to level the Gas Arrow. And even the Gas Arrow, if you're starting to have mana trouble, you could even hold off on leveling that. Otherwise, you can try to get, like, recover mana on kill from Siphon here. That could work okay if you want. to help with health, you can also grab Staunching. You know, it does give some strength as well, but you know, they're just helpful nodes along the way if you need, but otherwise you can skip them. Yeah, this would be your Evasion Energy Shield tree. Obviously you want to get up to your Spectral Ward. That's what really helps you get a lot of Energy Shield as a base. And then if you have that Series Disdain helmet as well, that will help a lot. Yeah. If you just have like a big Energy Shield helmet instead of it Series Disdain, maybe you even grab Subterfuge Mask early on. Otherwise, this is pretty good. So try to go to this tree. I like switching the pathing here. This is a little bit less points, and you kind of miss grabbing Exploit and the Jewel Socket here. But at the moment, you mostly just want it to be cheaper, or cheaper pathing. So this is, you know, just the 4 points here instead of, you know, 4 and then another 3 and then another 3 for Exploit. You're saving 6 points, but you're losing Exploit, Jewel Socket, 12 damage, whatever. But the point is, Catapult is really good because you really want this extra AoE, and this is 31% AoE. If you prefer, you could actually anoint Catapult early because it is a pretty cheap anoint. This other AoE over here, Volatile Catalyst, is also pretty cheap in case you just want AoE. But yeah, if you have the Delirium stuff for it, you can anoint these on your amulet, and that could save you some points as well. But I don't hate going over here completely because you do get an extra 16% AoE from the travel nodes here too, so they're pretty worth. I would still like to have them in the build. I think they're definitely recommended. Otherwise, yeah, you get Eternal Youth, so you can heal Energy Shield with your Life Flask. You get some lightning damage and shock chance, skill speed, dex int, and then it's just a lot of evasion, energy shield, evasion, energy shield, evasion, energy shield, some extra attack speed and strength. You get the idea. And then now for the final tree, let me zoom out so you can actually see everything at first. Yeah, you already know the ascendancy points. You know, Gathering Winds, Wind Ward, Point Blank, Endless Missions. But yeah, for the final tree here, it's going to look something like this. Now, there are some variants you can do. If you're really having dex problems, particularly if you're going for an expert dual string bow early on. Dual string bows in general are ideal because they have an extra arrow as an implicit, which is huge for gas arrow. Yeah, if you're going for that early on, you might not have the dex for it, in which case you might want to grab proficiency. Like maybe you even cut Kite Runner, or you know, some of these small nodes like this 3% attack speed one, or whatever. You know, you can cut some small things. Maybe even switch the pathing on the bottom back over to the other side. And you can grab proficiency and maybe this section for Falcon Technique, because each of these is another 5 dex as well. And by doing that, you should solve those dex problems. But otherwise, this is, I think, what you would ideally go for. This should be around your final tree. And yeah, you just kind of fill it out with the small nodes, you know, the 3% attack speed, the extra 12% one that you didn't choose initially, stuff like that. And it's pretty good. I got, like I said, I got to like level 86 and it was working great, even with subpar solo self-found gear in hardcore. But yeah, the tree worked good, the build was good, a lot of damage, fast move speed. Move speed was definitely crucial here. Yeah, this is, like I said, around the tree you should aim for. And again, if you need to switch certain things up, like if you need extra mana, you can try to get mana on kill Jewel, or you can grab Siphon here for mana on kill. You can get some Life Flask stuff if you want, but probably not this one. Like you probably don't want this, but you know, if you did want it, I guess you could. Otherwise, you know, try to aim for fizz damage on your gear. Maybe some lightning damage rolls if not fizz, but generally just fizz damage and then attack speed. Stick away from levels to projectile skills unless you are able to solve the mana problems. But from my experience, with the amount of attack speed you have and the mana cost of gas arrow, it's pretty difficult to support a high level one, so be careful of that. And instead focus on trying to get, you know, attack speed and mana leech as your suffixes instead of projectile gem levels. Yeah. Yeah, this is what you should aim for. Strong build, try it out. You have gas arrow as your only gem you really are leveling, besides maybe your spirit gems, which will be Wind Dancer, Grim Feast, and the Ghost Dance. And then, you know, as support, you got like Flame Wall to set off the ignites. You got Solar Orb with exposure and strip away, which is pretty good. You know, fire exposure. And then what else? You can use Escape Shot if you're wanting to get out of tricky situations, but with the new roll, you generally can just rely on roll. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you really like, you can also have shield charge in your off hand, and of course add flammability. You want just enough intelligence to add like a level 7 flammability and to have evasion ES gear in your slots. Those will definitely help against bosses. Yeah, try to get to this tree, and you should enjoy the build until, wow, until maybe it gets nerfed or something. We'll see. Energy shield probably will get nerfed at some point, but even then, this might still be pretty decent as is. So try it out while you can, and yeah, have some fun with it. This build can also, as a side note, be easily switched to something like a lightning arrow as well. Like, you don't necessarily have to play gas arrow, but I played gas arrow. This is what I went with. If you did go lightning arrow, maybe you'd switch a couple things, but in general, this tree works out pretty good for those as well. Yeah, have fun out there.